Welcome back, everyone. It's good to see you all on this fine August 16th, 2023. And then happy August. We're in the dog days of summer officially now. And lots of strange stuff is going on with the UAP disclosure, whatever you want to call it. Who knows where this is all going to go. So about 4 things I'm going to do, or 5 things I'm going to do today. So the first is just very briefly some upcoming episodes that I'm working on. And then number 2, I'm going to go just very quickly over the state of the channel. And then number 3, just current projects, where they stand. And number 4, we're going to kind of go over a disclosure update, like what's happened since the Grush revelations and all that good stuff. And then lastly, as per usual, just questions and whatnot. So with that, let's go over some upcoming episodes. And actually, this is I don't even have the thumbnails done. It's a bit of a just-in-time scenario over the last 2 weeks. So as an example, I've recorded a second interview with Dr. Eric Wargo. That's still has to be edited, but I should be in good shape. I have a bunch of other things that I'll explain a little bit later in this live stream that I had to get done this week. There's just, no matter how much I try to get ahead, there's always something that comes up. So like last week or the week before that, I had a client in an unrelated business that needed some work done, and that business generates about 55% of my income. So not that particular client, but that particular business. So I got kind of wrapped up in that, but it was good work. I kind of enjoyed doing it. And this week I got wrapped up in getting the copy edits on Weird World War China. So, that's I'm almost done going through it. All but two of the authors have their copy edits. So that should be the bulk of my work is pretty much done. I maybe have an hour and a half left, but it's just other work. And then another business that I have, I had some work on that I had to get done today. So anyway, it's been super busy, but we'll get to that. But in terms of upcoming episodes, I have the Dr. Eric Wargo episode. I have another episode that is, if my guest shows up tomorrow, which usually happens, but about 10% of the time you get a no-show. So, for your reference, like Gary Nolan was a no-show, but the reason he was, I think, is because when I scheduled the interview, disclosure there hadn't been the Grushwell revelations yet. And I think things got a little hot for him after the SALT conference. Again, I wasn't told this, but this is what I'm assuming. And if you'll notice, he's been pretty quiet since that conference. So I imagine maybe he got some heat from it, or, he's just being a little bit more careful. Who the heck knows? Anyway. All right. So the other upcoming episode tomorrow, again, if it goes through, is with a former employee. His name is Dr. Brandenburg. He is a former employee of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, Sandia National Lab, and he worked on nuclear weapons design. And in so doing, once some of the data came back from Mars missions and they were analyzing the soil and things like that, the signature on Martian soil was basically the same as what a signature would be if someone had used nuclear weapons on a planet. Like Mars is what Earth would look like if there was in the aftermath of a nuclear war. So he has an intriguing hypothesis that Mars was literally nuked from orbit. And, the guy's a PhD, hugely credible, academic type background. He's a plasma physicist and all that stuff. So I'm looking very much forward to talking to Dr. Brandenburg tomorrow. It should, if all goes well, that episode should come out on, next Wednesday. Still trying to stack the queue. I came close to a few folks, but again, my podcast is still, it's gotten a lot bigger from zero when I started about 19 months or so ago, but it's still pretty Lilliputian, pretty small. So sometimes people just look at those numbers and just say the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So, and I understand that, but I will get there. I, don't understand all the ways of the world with the algorithm and kind of, getting people to subscribe and all that, but I'm working on it. Hopefully I'm getting better at it. Hopefully I'm putting out consistent content and good content. But this is kind of the stuff that I would want to know. I mean, literally a lot of these questions, I will, sometimes do some research, like if it's a well-known person, like, in the community, but other times I'll go in, semi-cold, because I want to ask the questions that you all might be having in real time as I have them. And it's an interesting interview style, but I generally tend to be a highly prepared person, but interviews for me are like it's just a different mindset. It's less analytical and it's more of a intuitive kind of, I just go where the responses lead me. And there's certain things that I definitely want to touch on, and I'll try to steer the conversation sometimes. But I find that if you go in with extremely prepared questions, it can feel really unnatural or artificial. rather than if you have some questions, they provide you with kind of some guidelines or some topics that you want to touch on. And then as someone says something that surprises you, you can follow that path. So anyway, that's kind of all I've got. I have another interview with a, like it or not, a demonologist in early October. So that's going to be a little while out. I got to get better at scheduling these things because it can cause a little bit of stress if I don't have kind of the interviews lined up a week in advance. If I had my druthers, I would just, hire a contractor part-time to just schedule and book all of these interviews. It would save me a ton of time and stress. And I literally would just have them schedule these things, 5-6 months out. And then I would just take several interviews each week and then edit them on my own when I had time. So it wasn't any sense of urgency required. It's just something that's just, I don't have to worry about. I will get there. That will probably be my first contractor hire, would be kind of just like a personal assistant type, but not like a full-time thing, but just something that, they can book some of these things, and then I just show up at the meeting, get everything done. It's on my calendar and I don't really have to worry too much about it, but it's neither here nor there. So anyway, I don't even have any thumbnails for you yet. I thought about doing it today, but I had other things that I just had to get done. So anyway, let's just move on to state of the channel. And let's see. I'm just going to be really quick with this one because I'm not sure if people like it or not, but I'll just give you a sense of how slow things are and not slow, but you know what I mean. So just really quickly, this is how I did in July. Probably the best ever month for subs. So I'm thankful for that. And thank you if you're a new sub. Welcome to the channel. I'm really glad you're here, and I hope I make content that you'll enjoy. In terms of like revenue, we're doing better, right? So if I look, since the beginning, it's probably not good because I didn't start earning revenue until kind of the beginning of 2023. But we're getting there. This was basically one massive super thanks at some point. But we're doing better. Let's look at the last 90 days would probably be more indicative because you have some of that distortion. So it's pretty good. Again, I think this is also like a super thanks sort of deal. So, and I guess watch page ads, but yeah, you can see a trend better if you just use watch page ads because that's just organic. I don't know what happened here. That's kind of weird. Oh no, that was probably the Ryan Macbeth. That was Ryan Macbeth stuff. He basically shared it on his community tab, and then I got a ton of traffic. Like, it's kind of weird how this stuff works. All right, so just going back to July. So doing well. I'm thankful for everybody's help. It's not a kind of a quit your serious job sort of thing, but you get 100 times the subscribers. It could be interesting at that point, right? You can, again, it's not necessarily quit your day job thing, but it's, you don't, it gets a little bit easier as you scale. So we'll see how that all goes. But anyway, I don't want to bore people with any more of this stuff. So with that, I'm going to jump out of there. And then just a really quick update on current projects. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going through the copy edits of Weird World War China, and I am mostly done that. I literally have one more story to go through. I'll go through that. I'll wait for authors to get back any of their changes, if any, and then I'll send that back to my publisher early next week. And then I have to focus on the whole marketing campaign and all that stuff. So with that, I'm going to probably do a trailer. I'll probably throw it in like it's any other commercial in some of my. So I'm just warning you. So don't hate me for it, but I also have to find ways to make this project something that's sustainable for me, so I don't have to work on other things that compete for my time. Because right now I work probably 12 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I don't have like a traditional day job. But I am able to sustain myself through doing a number of other things. And it's getting better and better, but it still requires a lot of time. The purpose of this, where I want to get this channel is that I can take some of that, reclaim some of those hours back as ad revenue replaces other time-based revenue, right? Because I bill on a per hour basis on some of the stuff that I do. So I'm going to just kind of keep it at that. And then trying to think there's anything else that is related to that. I'm also a quarter of the way through editing my novel. I finished it. My goal is to get it done before September. Again, all this other stuff keeps kind of falling in front of me. So I keeps pushing that back a little bit. But after I record and edit the next 2 episodes, then I'll obviously finish the copy edits, which I expect to finish tomorrow, actually, unless anything else comes in. Then I hope to get that done. I might have to add another 15 to 20,000 words just to add a subplot, but I think I have a pretty decent subplot that I've been thinking about recently, and I think I'll be able to add that. So with that, this is I actually hope to have more people on to discuss the next topic. Let's see. All right, so I wanted to go through a disclosure update, but I mean, there's literally, we're kind of 18 minutes into the stream, and I don't know what's going on YouTube. It's kind of weird, to be honest. Let's see. Just gonna have to shut her down a little bit. Oh, yeah, I don't know what's going on with this live stream. It says that like there's 6 people watching, but I'm seeing. Oh, no wonder. It's showing me like Facebook live stream viewers, which is pretty odd. Let me see what's going on. Huh. Yeah, this is absolutely bizarre. Just give me a chance to go to. Yeah, I have people here, but it's not showing up in StreamYard. Not cool, StreamYard. Not cool at all. Okay. All right, I'm going to have to do this awkward thing where. Yeah. I do just need Mr. Beast for like 5 minutes. Yeah, StreamYard is like wildly unperforming tonight. Like I'm pretty pissed off about it, to be honest. Like it's telling me I have nobody, but it's showing me Facebook, and nobody watches on Facebook. They just don't. So I don't know why it's broken right now, but I'm pretty pissed off about it. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, like I literally thought my first monologue, like I literally thought I was talking into the ether for like the last 20 minutes. I thought nobody was watching at all. So, all right, just bear with me here because I have to like go to Facebook and so I'm gonna like respond to some of these. Yeah, I see 9 people in the chat on YouTube, but I see 0. It literally says 0 on StreamYard. So that's why I'm a little upset with StreamYard. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out like what the heck it's doing. All right, so I'm literally like I have to jump back and forth to YouTube in order to like respond. So, all right, I'm just going to go through what my monologue, not monologue, but in terms of the disclosure update. So, let's talk about where we are right now with disclosure and kind of where we're going. So, July 26th, there's this hearing in Congress. You had 2 former fighter pilots telling the same old story they've been telling since 2017, which it was useful to have them speak in front of Congress. And I thought that was helpful, but there's nothing really new there. And then you had Grush, who dropped a bunch of bombshells, which, given the response, I think there's very, very high reason. There's a very high probability that all of those things are true, unless 40 people lied to him, which is possible, but I doubt it. Unless 40 people lied to him, we have recovered craft and bodies. If you haven't watched my interview yet with Frank Milburn at like this morning, definitely watch that because according to him, and again, I'm saying according to him, he knows someone who led an operation, a crash retrieval operation in the 1980s. And it's a thing. Apparently, it's a thing. It's a unit that is opconned to MI6, which is part of the British Foreign Office. It's the outward facing intelligence arm of the British government. And we go into all that stuff. I've never seen anything like it on YouTube before. So definitely, definitely check it out. But it just lends credence to this reality that we may be living in where these things actually do happen and there are units that conduct these sorts of operations. So, anyway, going back to this disclosure update. So, this happens on January 26th. Initially, kind of only News Nation really picks it up. It's complete, or not complete, but very little coverage on the mainstream media. There's some, but it was almost eerie in how silent some of these media arms were, which to me, if the government wants you to know something, those people just repeat it like parrots. The fact that they all in lockstep said very little means that this is all these allegations are probably true and they've been discouraged from reporting it or getting people excited about it. So we're kind of, if that was kind of the, episode 3 of Star Wars, or sorry, episode 4 of Star Wars. This is episode 5, the Empire Strikes Back. So, what do intelligence officials do to prevent this kind of stuff from coming out? They deny, obfuscate, and counter-accuse. So, what's happened since then? Well, you had Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick come out and say that we don't have any evidence to suggest this, and Grush lied about working for the UAP, for the Arrow office, which is patently ridiculously false, right? Arrow didn't even exist when Grush was in government, and he never said that. He said he was on the UAP task force. So anyway, you have the blanket denial. That's kind of step one. Then you have obfuscation, right? And obfuscation is, if you notice right now, there's a lot of reports coming out, like the MH370 airliner crash, where there's a video that says it's been taken by UFOs. Then you have the Peru stuff, where you have people claiming that there's aliens down there and all that stuff. So, and then you also have this Nevada incident where you had the 9-foot tall alien crash, whatever. I'm not saying any of this stuff's not true, but what I am saying is expect to see a flood of disinformation that makes this topic look like Looney Tunes land, right? Because if you kind of flood and obfuscate real data with misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, then you can use that to muddy the waters and thoroughly discredit anybody who comes and speaks out, for and with this topic. And I include myself in this too. When I interview somebody, and I probably should have a disclaimer on everything I put in my website, that doesn't mean that I accept it as 100% truth. It just means I think it's an interesting story, and there might be a there or not. So as channels get bigger, expect agents or people who are tied to the government to appear on these shows and spin the story a little bit, or to put out information in a certain way, the way that the government wants to see it. What I think is happening internally is I think there's a factional battle. I think there are people who want to disclose this to the American people, and I think there's also people who frankly want to keep it under wraps. And there are many reasons why they might do that. It could be that they're just power hungry. I doubt it. It could also be that they're afraid. They might be worried about ontological shock. It could be that there's a faction like the so-called Collins elite that thinks it's demonic, and by causing more attention to it just feeds it. Again, I'm not saying I subscribe to any of these theories, but there might be many reasons that they might not want disclosure. It could just be all about the tech, right? It could be about the supreme embarrassment that they've had in the past, that they killed people and they don't want to be held accountable for it, and that they're still killing people and they don't want to be held accountable for it. So that's another reason that they might have an incentive not to share any of this stuff. The other thing too, you go back to the Dr. Michael Masters interview I did, it could be that they're future humans. And for some reason, the way the logic of time works, if too many people know, it might divert certain timelines that they're worried about protecting. Again, this stuff all sounds crazy, sounds like science fiction, but I'm just trying to find, ways to get through it. It could be that, this Majestic 12 really existed. Maybe they really signed an agreement with some extraterrestrial civilization, or not even extraterrestrial, but non-human intelligence civilization. And, they may have allowed what would effectively be crimes against humanity, allow them to abduct people, experiment on them, and do all sorts of, things like that. Again, I can throw a million of these different things. It could be that, something that's even more disturbing, like when we die, we just die, and we're just kind of a mad science experiment on this world, and the government doesn't want you to know that because it probably would cause societal chaos and disorder. So I don't want to prejudge many of these people and tactics. There are some, though, I will, and we'll get to that because this is just the obfuscation mode. So just be very careful what you see, hear, and read. Be very critical and don't accept anything as like, this is exactly what it is. I know it's this, because that's where they get you. They get you into a trap. You just have to be open to, all right, this sounds a little weird or crazy, but there's scientific evidence to support it. And maybe it's being suppressed or whatever. So just don't buy everything you see, but also be open to a number of possibilities, including and especially ones that you would have never considered. So again, the sources of information are very difficult to get these days that are legitimate and right. So, and the other thing too is people are starting to, to come out and tell people things. So I'll just leave it at that. So there's information that's getting out. Regardless, that's kind of the obfuscation phase. So before I get to counter accuse, because that's going to be a bit of I'm going to rage a little bit about that. So, oh my gosh. All right, let's see. All right, sorry, I'm just quickly looking at the chats. Yeah, nobody watches mainstream media unless it's just for entertainment. Yeah, David Wartsky, 100%. 100%. They need better script writers. No, I mean, I mean, David, I think I don't know about the holographic projection part, but I mean, top scientists have known this for a very long time, right? Like I'm not actually sitting on my seat; I'm hovering above it, right? 99.9% of us is empty space, and we're literally just particles vibrating at a certain frequency, and you can actually calculate those frequencies. Like that's mainstream science, believe it or not. So I wouldn't. I don't think. I think even if we told people that, because physicists have been telling people that for, since the 1930s, people don't internalize it or believe it. But it is what it is. So okay, all right. So let's get to the third. Let's get to the third piece, which is counter accuse. So this guy Ken Klippenstuhl, as in like, now I'm good. Now I'm starting to get comments in StreamYard. Thank God. Let's see. All right, so I'm just gonna post this up. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that ain't so. Yeah, that's right. You can't, and that's kind of the one of the issues with UFO Twitter. Like there's like the nuts and bolts people, and then there's like the woo people. And I think, I didn't really start studying this or looking into this stuff until maybe 2018, and I came into it through the remote viewing angle, which is even more woo than the UFO angle. But there have been the Stanford Research Institute. You had two laser physicists, so Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, PhDs at Stanford, did groundbreaking research with lasers, and they really looked into this and were able to, with Ingo Swann, develop a technique that allowed people to project their consciousness to anywhere in space and time and remote view. Now, they were able to kind of show empirically that it did indeed work, but I think there's still many like people really never figured out how it worked. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly right. Well, I can't. I even say I can't even. Actually, I can't even say that's exactly right. But I think that's as good a theory as any other. Right? I don't want to. Yeah, that's right. And also like you could not harden your view, but you could solidify your view, and then new evidence comes in that just completely throws you off. But I think the UFO topic is just one of those things that's not so simple. And in the early days, people only reported or tended to only report the nuts and bolts stuff because if they reported any of the strange paranormal activity that tends to be associated with the phenomenon, then they would be locked up and called crazy. Which leads me to my next point. So Ken Klippenstuhl, as in like like a stool sample. I mean, his real name's really Klippenstein, but same thing. The guy's a piece of you know what. So this is why veterans don't don't go to a head shrinker. And I'm saying head shrinker deliberately because I know it's Latin with really negative connotations. This is why they don't get medical help. This is why they get PTSD and don't report it and don't go to the doctor and then kill themselves at such high rates because of this motherfucker. That's why. You come back, you do your due diligence, you put your ass on the line like uh, David Grush did, and you just tell what you know. You go through all the proper channels, and somebody tips this lazy sack of shit off and says, if you just check, if you just reach out to the police authority in this particular jurisdiction, they should have some data regarding his issue that his mental health incident that he had back in so and so. Like this guy was tipped. I mean, do you really believe journalists like did their homework? I mean, really? Do they ever do their homework? Right? They just take what comes in from their intelligence contact and they follow up on it and then they write an article about it. That's what this guy did. And he's clearly got no integrity because he posted something on Twitter and said that he was fired from The Intercept. And then because News Nation took him at his word because he's supposed to be someone who's like a truth teller and exposes the truth and does all this stuff. And he's like, aha, I trolled you. Like, do you really think this person is of good moral character or deserves to breathe the same air that we do? Hell no. Hell no. So this is what people do. They counter accuse. And what the intelligence community does, who are kind of on the dark side of this, they're going to use these useful idiots to, I mean, this guy, Ken Klippenstein, is like the Martin Shkreli of the journalistic profession, if you could call it a profession, right? I mean, it's a prostitution probably has a higher pedigree than journalists do today. So just people like that who stigmatize an entire generation of soldiers, sailors, and airmen and Marines who served their country and were exposed to horrors. And let me just give you some let me just be real a little bit. So one of my friends, Green Beret, served in Afghanistan, was in an IED incident. He had to go on the duty where he had to remove the body parts. So he had to carry his friend's head off the ground and put it in a bag. Okay? And then he comes back to the world and someone like this piece of shit is stigmatizing him for stuff that if this little gnat actually saw this stuff in real life, they probably have to lock him up because he doesn't have the mental or intestinal fortitude to handle it. And there's millions of American veterans who are enduring this sort of thing, and because it's so stigmatized by roaches like Ken Klippen, whatever his name is, right? Because it's stigmatized by people like that, they just grin and bear it and they don't seek help. And you know what? This is just, if I any like people I know who currently serve, I would advise them not to get help at all, because if they want to preserve their credibility and not have this sort of stuff happen, Uncle Sam doesn't have your back. They're going to have somebody who releases it if you ever get into a situation where you're trying to do the right thing and the right thing just doesn't happen to align with the U.S. government's interest. So just don't get help. I mean, it's just like that's the message from this. So I'm not saying don't get help, but like I'm just every veteran who knows about this is super fired up about it because it's messed up. It's not right. It is not right. It is downright evil. And anyway, I'll just stop there. But this is the kind of counter accusation phase where they're going to seek to discredit witnesses and start intimidating people and doing all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So, all right, I got to see. I like lost control of the comments, so I'm going to go back and figure out where I left off. Okay. All right. So I don't think I got that. Yeah, that's right. 100%. I mean, aren't they the same thing? Oh my god, I don't know what to think of Uri Geller, man. But they're even messing with him, right? So what they did is he sent out like a picture of he claimed were non-human, like the bodies of non-human intelligences. So somebody posted a picture from the X Files that was similar and said that was Uri Geller's photo, and oh look, it was on the X Files. So I mean, they're already working on him. Like it is. I mean, it's to be frank, it's pretty sloppy though. Like if I were kind of if I were the guy who was kind of running the counterintelligence op, I just wouldn't even acknowledge it. I would just put pressure on the journalists and just say, "Hey, like this is nothing. If you want to cover it, that's fine, but I'll talk to more serious journalists about all other topics. So you're not going to be my first phone call because you're obviously not serious." And that's the way you handle it. And it just goes away really quick. And let's see. Yeah, I mean he's I mean I'm not going to say who it was and all that stuff, but he's like perfectly well adapted, and he's a good dude. Yeah, yeah, David. I got a little passionate about this, but you're 100% correct. Like if you need help, get help. Like it's just the fact that you know people who aren't 1/10 of these men and women, like these little troll things. He. I don't believe in UFOs, so I'm just gonna like assault this person's character. It's just it's old. Like people can see you doing it a mile away, and it doesn't add to any of the credibility. So yeah, I appreciate you, David. Appreciate you, Moon Man. You're the greatest. Hey, look, you're again. You're always welcome to come up here on the you know not co present. That implies you have to actually do work, but you're a patron, so you're always welcome to join the live stream if you want. So anyway, all right. So that's kind of the disclosure update in terms of what's happened, what's going to happen going forward. So again, to level set, you had let me just cover this really quick. Yeah. Let me tell you about confirmation bias. Moonman can actually Moonman. Do you want to post that text that because I was talking to him on the phone when I saw something in the sky, and this is kind of how a trained reporter by trained reporter I mean like somebody with military training might handle a report. Um, but yeah, it's on my cell phone, so it's not like readily available for me to to transfer to. But what I did is I didn't have anything to write with, but I was talking to him on the phone, and I saw something streak across the sky. It's like a blue object, and this was August 11th or 12th. I can't remember the exact date, but what I did was, and again, I want to put this up because this is important. This illustrates exactly David's point here. So I'm like, wow, that was weird. I never saw anything like that. So Moon Man and I thought it was potentially a UAP, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I just put something out on Twitter, just saying like, hey, is there any has anybody seen this at this particular? Here we go. Here we go. So on or about 11 August 2023, approximately 21:30 hours Pacific time, moving from east to west, something streaked across the sky. Distance difficult to judge. Cover distance of approximately 50 meters in 1 second. Difficult to judge. Let's see. The distance. A blue luminous glow came from mouth of Sacramento River to the bay. From the rightmost tree on my property to the end, it covered it in a second. 20 to 30 feet above the trees at the hill. Now, when you're judging height, right, it's very difficult to judge that correctly because you don't really know what the size of the object is. Trajectory had minimal ballistic arc, not a line drive exactly, but fairly straight. So the thing wasn't juking in the sky or whatever. So it was fairly ambiguous. So I put out kind of exactly or something very similar on Twitter to what he said. And yeah, I have children that are like singing in the background. So I might have to be right back in a second so I can police that situation. But anyway, so I put something out on Twitter and then I told my wife about it. And she's like, "Oh yeah, isn't this like the Perseids? Isn't that?" So I look it up and sure enough, the Perseids were supposed to peak on the evening of August 12th and 13th, but you could still see them. So it was part of the Perseid meteor shower. So again, to reiterate that point, right? Be careful of confirmation bias. The first thing you should do is try to eliminate all other possible causes. Now, can I say for certain it was part of the Perseid shower? No, I mean, I can't, but I would say it's like 99.9% likelihood, right? So anyway, that's a super, super important point. All right, going back to disclosure. So the next part of this is what's next? Now, I'm reminded of something that John Ramirez said, that there would be some sort of disclosure event prior to Thanksgiving, potentially in September, maybe a little bit later, or basically prior to Thanksgiving. I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but I don't think this is over yet. I think the fact that they've written full bore legislation is a good sign. The fact that they've had a bunch of hearings before that main hearing, and they seem to be very well educated about this information, was also very, very, very good sign. So here's the issue, though. Grush told Congress that he knew where these craft were. He had precise locations. He knew exactly where they were, and he would be happy to share them with the DoD in a SCIF. Well, it turns out that the clearance required for that has been, he no longer has. I don't know if the DoD revoked it or not. So if you don't have a clearance, you can't go into that SCIF, or you don't have the adequate clearance, you can't go into that SCIF, and you can't share that information with Congress. So, the DoD just outmaneuvered him bureaucratically. So I think Congressman Burchett said something to the effect that they're going to work their way through it. But, they're putting a lot of roadblocks in front of people. The other thing I saw, there was like a John Greenwald interview on, I can't, I think it was the Chris Lato show. He's a former F-16 pilot. And, he was kind of making the argument that if the government were to release this, then, it would take a huge hit to its credibility and stuff like that. So that's the risk, and they could lose control. And like, my view is they lost all their credibility in 2020. They have no credibility anymore. You can't, same with the media. You can't trust anything you see or read. You have to just call people that in those particular areas to find out what's really actually going on. So, I mean, you're going to get some stuff in the media that bears some truth, but you have to triangulate everything because, bureaucrats. There's a science fiction author who I met in, I think, 2017. The guy's a fabulous guy. His name was Jerry Pournelle. He co-wrote a book, many books, but he's a science fiction author called Lucifer's Hammer, and it's about like this asteroid hitting the U.S. and basically, or comet, I can't remember exactly what, and it killing a huge swath of the population, all that stuff. But he used to have a saying. It's called Pournelle's Law. It's the iron law of bureaucracy, and and yeah, well, I would call them normies. I would just say less informed people, because people who are informed do not believe the media. Um, yeah, Larry Niven. Uh, yeah, is the other gentleman. So Jerry Pournelle had a law called the Iron Law of Bureaucracy, which stipulated that initially bureaucracies are created to solve a particular problem, and the leaders in that initial bureaucracy are the people who are good at solving that problem. But as the bureaucracy grows and the weight of the bureaucracy gets heavier and heavier, the people who lead the bureaucracy are people who, the people whose interest is to preserve the bureaucracy for the bureaucracy's sake for that particular organization, eventually start to supplant the people who are there to solve the problem, i.e., the competent people. So the iron law of bureaucracy says that over time, bureaucracies become more interested in perpetuating their own survival than in accomplishing the task for which they were created. And that's kind of what you're seeing happening right now. So, all right, yeah, we gotta, movement. We gotta stay out of politics, man. We gotta, if we could convert, because again, like, look, props to AOC, okay, just in terms of leftists, like, and props to who's the other guy who's like super radical, like super far right. I mean, they were literally on the same committee, the committee hearing, and they were both like asking good questions, and so good for her, like full props. Yeah, yeah. There's like, yeah, it's Jared Moskowitz. What is that related to? Let's see. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, you mean that's Heinlein. Heinlein wrote Stranger in a Strange Land, but was that his first book? I don't know that much about Heinlein to really. Yeah. Look, like, credit goes where credit's due. It shouldn't matter what party they are. If they do the right thing, they should get credit for it. Right? Getz, that's the other guy, right? Like, give them credit. Like, same thing with AOC. Like, they both, yeah, yeah. So, unfortunately, people in the intelligence community are probably one or two standard deviations of higher IQs than Congress. So I'm not entirely like super optimistic. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he was actually in the hearing with Luna, and not hearing, but he's in the hearing, but he's also in the press conference beforehand. Yeah, in fact, I don't even know what his party is. I have no idea, but he's good. I agree, he's good. Um, and then the only one that was kind of annoying was Fox. Like, she asked like one of the better questions, and then before Grush could answer, then she started going into like a partisan attack. And again, like, it just wasn't. She didn't like. It's like, read the room, lady. Just read the room. Let's like, can't we just be harmonious for probably the most important issue in human history? Can we just, anyway? I'm cautiously optimistic. That said, I think people should be attempting to find out about this phenomena, what it is, on their own. Like, I don't. I think now's the time to just stop relying on it. I mean, you look at what's happening in Maui right now. I mean, what a disaster! Like, they wouldn't let people back in to get their kids. Like I don't get too much into it, but like it's just you just see this stuff over and over again. We're in the period of human history where we're all there is. We have to be responsible for helping each other because no one is coming to save you but yourself. And Benjamin Franklin probably said it best: God helps those who help themselves. So in disasters, help your neighbor. Don't wait for FEMA. Don't wait for the federal government. They're going to fail you. They're not, they're just not a lot of competent people. And and frankly, they don't do these jobs like every day. They may have trained for some of it and stuff like that, but just self-organize. This is the time. Self-organize. Try to establish a your own connection with the phenomena or whatever, right? Whatever it is, just try to learn for yourself because you're never gonna get satisfactory answers. You might get some answers, but like I think we're beyond expecting government to do the right thing in any way, shape, or form. Even let's see. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because that's the other thing too. Even if they disclose, they're going to disclose it in a certain way, right? So, as an example, if you look at what I would consider more of the Brahmin face of this, like the people whose ancestors came on the Mayflower and like high East Coast society. So I'm talking again, you know, Chris Mellon's great, but his father, comes from the line of like the Mellons and this and that. Their view or their way of looking at the world is they know better than the rest of us, and they know how we're going to react better than we do. So we have to, if which is why I like the Leslie Keens, who are kind of also part of that sort of rarefied kind of WASP sort of look, I'm half Irish, half German, so I'm not one of those. Uh, that's why like I'm a kind of smart guy, but I have pretty rough edges because I'm Irish, Irish and German. So it's just like this sort of like you have to manage the lower orders and be so as a prime example of this is any discussion of bodies, right? They won't even dignify. They like, you know, the unwashed masses can only handle so much of an ontological shock. We're gonna have to come, and with people like me, I'm like, look, there's some cases where they've mutilated, right? People have been mutilated like cattle mutilations. So, I think the picture is much more nuanced. I don't think there's like one intergalactic civilization. I think we're kind of, off of a spiral in this, in the long arm of a spiral galaxy. We're kind of like in the Wild West in galactic terms, and you know, anything can come here and it can show up. And so, even if you're trying to, that's why when people are kind of warned off of doing things like CE5 and things like that, it's not that the government doesn't want you to do it. Well, they do, but the reason they don't want you to do it is not because you'll figure it out and know more than them. It's because they don't know what you're going to get back. They probably don't know enough about the phenomenon to tell you. Sometimes when you whisper into the abyss, the abyss will whisper back. And again, that's not the exact quote. I deliberately changed it that way. But sometimes you might reach out into the darkness and something malevolent might reach back. Something benevolent might reach back too. But the problem is, and that's where I think the government's failure is, right? They're not protecting us because they're not telling us what the hell's going on. And that's unacceptable. So I think this is kind of their last shot at earning back credibility because they have none right now. Let's be honest. But and they lost it in 2020 for obvious reasons. But this is their one shot. So all I can say is use it. Why? I mean, they still won't come clean on like the JFK assassination. I mean, come on, guys. Like it's water under the bridge. It's inconsequential now. And they couldn't come. I mean, MK Ultra was probably worse, but at least it came out. They couldn't. Sidney Gottlieb couldn't destroy the evidence fast enough. Okay, let's see. All right, I think that's all. It's kind of all I see, right? So, anyway, where was I going with this? So, I'm cautiously optimistic. Hopefully, we'll see something then. And then there's this big date in 2026 or 2027 that people keep alluding to. But yeah, I don't know. And then the Russians are saying that there's another another planned pandemic. That's good. Again, I think the U.S. government just and the Chinese government just screwed up. I think um, EcoHealth was just trying to develop a biodefense against SARS-CoV-2 viruses, and didn't do it in the United States because it's illegal. It's gain of function research. They tried to pitch it to DARPA. DARPA said no, this is gain of function research. So then they pitched to NIH, and Fauci was like, "Yes, I think this is a great idea." And 7 million people died. So I don't think it was deliberate. I don't think it was like, I'm not even going to say the words. It begins with an and then demic, but I don't think it was something like that. I think they screwed up big time, and rather than doing the right thing, bureaucrats get ahead by lying and never telling the truth and just telling people what they want to hear, and that's just exactly what this guy did. So anyway, I'm not gonna stay away from that, but it's just you're just seeing more of that. Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I mean, they would have like handicapped children eat cereal polluted with, not as part of MK Ultra, but for during the nuclear era that was contaminated with strontium 90, right, which binds to calcium, and like didn't tell anybody, just did it to kids, they're handicapped, so they have less value, right? Just evil stuff. The Tuskegee experiments, another like infecting black men with syphilis, like it's just evil stuff. Yeah, when I got Moderna, my lymph nodes under my arms like swelled like balloons for a little bit. I've never had a sickness in my life that came close to that. Um, but you know what? When I took it, I was like, look, there's been no long term. Um, there's been no long term. I forget what it's called, but there's been no long term studies of this thing. So I'm just it's a calculated risk. But I just after I got two and I had that reaction to it, I didn't take I refused to take anymore. Like I just what I hopefully it won't have any long term health effects for me, but we'll see. And my son came home with COVID last week. I had it for like a day, and I had mild gastrointestinal issues, let's just say, but it was fine. Like no problem, no problem. Like natural immunity. Um, so yeah, I'm not. I'll take my chances the next time. I don't trust those people at all. Oh, and then apparently ivermectin's now it's fine. Now it's CDC says it's fine now, right? They just figured that out. So whatever. Yeah, that's yeah, super messed up. So yeah. Anyway, so cautiously optimistic, but you're gonna see them try to do some nasty things to Grush and his credibility and all that stuff. So well, they had to. So what pushed them to do that was they when David Morehouse published his book Psychic Warrior, they were freaking out. I mean, um, two men showed up at his house and like during the winter in Maryland, and I say two men because there were footprints leading away from his house, and he would keep on like the generator on in the winter, but he would keep his garage door slightly open so that it would vent out all the uh, carbon dioxide or the carbon monoxide. Well, these guys just came in, shut the door, and if his I think cat hadn't woken him up, his entire family would be dead, including him. And just by like a lark, he survived. Now he doesn't know who did that, but he highly suspects this is around the time when his book came out for Psychic Warrior. So after that, CIA took over the program, Project Stargate, in 1995, and then declared that had like a scientific review with two scientists. One was just like, yeah, it works, and the other one was like, oh, nothing to see here, complete you know complete fluke. This stuff worked, and then they canceled the program. I doubt that they did. I think they either still use contractors or they still train this. In fact, I think even Lou Elizondo kind of has said that he, has been trained to remote view and things like that. I don't think he's supposed to say that, but they still use it. Okay, so we got starred. Okay. Yeah, it is. It was like the whole hemisync process was developed at the Monroe Institute at the Gateway, Gateway program, and that helps get you into, the right brainwave state, right? So if you want to be at 4 hertz, it'll put in like on one side like 110 hertz, on another side like 114 hertz, and that difference will be where your brainwave syncs. So it's fairly effective. Yeah, I've tried it. It hasn't worked for me yet, but I'll keep trying. Um, I mean, maybe like I kind of have been visualizing weird stuff, but that I haven't been able to. And I've been trying all my life to do OBE stuff, and I'm just not. I can't. I'm not. I'm not very good at quieting my mind. That's always been a big big issue for me. But I'll keep trying. Yeah. Agreed. I just I'm so busy, and it's like it's hard to. I know it's not an excuse, but I just have not been successful with it. Someday maybe. All right, so that's kind of the disclosure update. In terms of, we can just go straight to questions and see. I've already been incorporating much of that with this particular um, particular stuff. So, all right, what do people want to talk about? So I put something out, and nobody sent me questions at all. So if you can hear that stimming in the background, I have a disabled teenager, so who has autism-like symptoms, but she has like a genetic disorder that she stims like that. So just it is what it is. I can't really stop it while I'm live. So my apologies to everybody. 100%, 100%. They may even be driving it for all we know. Um, it could also be that there's one side that's driving it and there's one side that's not driving it. You know, I know, Moon Man. I know you like. I know. But can you hear it? I mean, it actually. Well, there it comes back again. But anyway, my apologies. But I do think there's I mean, again, I don't even like. We all have to assume that it's possible that this whole non-human intelligence thing is not true as well. You have to hold like these contradictory thoughts in your mind at all times, right? Because people will use it to fool you. So there is one scenario when it just doesn't exist. I don't believe that, but I don't know, right? I don't have a knowing. But I think if all these allegations are true, if there's been some non-human intelligence monitoring the human race, then absolutely they're following it. And there could be multiple non-human intelligences, some that are pro and some that are actively trying to stop it. And that non-human intelligence could be human intelligence from the future. And you could have different evolutionary paths of humans that are fighting each other. You could have the Greys, imagine them being part of a segment of the human race that only evolves in the event of a major disaster, right? So they would be fighting for the disaster and, in order to survive. And then you have other humans that are fighting to prevent the disaster. Like it could be, again, there's so many different, I mean, again, I sound crazy talking about this, but you just have to be open to some of this stuff. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or there could have been, imagine that there was some sort of treaty between Eisenhower and these intelligences, and maybe they wanted to disclose right away. And Eisenhower said, "No, we just fought World War II. Like it's too much. We're in the Cold War, and we're already in an existential conflict. Give us 80 years, or give us 75 years, and we'll have like a very discreet level of disclosure." But this is not like the U.S. government doesn't think in those terms. The Chinese government might think in those terms. They're actually very good at long-term planning, but the U.S. government is not. They'll kind of war game things out maybe 25, 50 years out, but after that, who knows? But 80 years, I mean, you don't even know what you don't know. So, I mean, even if a remote viewer remote viewed 80 years in the future, it wouldn't be very helpful because they probably wouldn't have words or like a vocabulary to describe some of the things that they might see. And imagine the current pace of technological change, which is exponential, right? 80 years from now, we wouldn't even recognize. We wouldn't even recognize ourselves. I mean, we would be so far beyond, who knows? But I think it would just be very difficult for them to plan that far out. Yeah. So anyway, all right. The other thing I was like, I'm glad I remembered this. So the other thing that I wanted to ask folks about, and I want to hear their opinion. So Jeff Mara, I don't know if you've all seen the Jeff Mara podcast. He does this thing on like Saturdays where he has like, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use tryouts. And tryouts sounds so ridiculous. It's not quite that, but what he auditions, I think, is kind of like he'll just have people pop in and like pitch him about, as, them being a potential guest or something like that. And he gets a lot of entertaining people, but the quality of guest is not necessarily going to be as high because like what I typically try to do is I try to I'm not going to be 100% correct, but I think I get high quality people, especially for a low subscriber number channel, at least for now. But I've kind of they're they're not a variety of like I was cooking chicken last weekend and the chicken got up and like started talking to me and then I had him on my podcast. I'm not I don't know. Anyway, I'm dancing around this topic, but should I do something like that? Would that be valuable or would that kind of degrade the quality? I mean, it would be entertaining, I think, but at the end of the day, it might be more entertaining. It might like degrade the channel a little bit. I just want to know if you kind of were thinking about it. Would you do it, or would you say, no, don't? It's not you. It's not you. Yeah, yeah, but again, it's quality versus quantity, right? So you can have extremely high quality, but if you're not growing, you're not growing. So I mean, I am growing, but I'm not growing as fast as I would like, right? So yeah, but that doesn't answer my question, Moon Man. Should I do it or should I just not? Should I just not consider it, or should I or should I experiment with it? It's like super silent. Oh no, I would do it live. There's no, there's no way. There's no way I would edit that. That's just not 100% agree. It is not worth my time to to edit. I mean, that's the beauty. That's the one beauty of live streams. I don't have to edit at all. Let me just get rid of this banner. Right? I just kind of set up this engine, and then I have other random things that I build. Right? So here's an example. Four-dimensional chess. Okay. So, I got a bunch of pre-planned things like that. Or if I'm, start if I start talking about a contentious topic or really scary topic. Trigger warning. Anyway, so I didn't have to edit that. I just did it, right? I just press a button and StreamYard kind of takes care of it. So the good thing about live streams is it actually doesn't require, once you have the engine built, it doesn't require as much preparation or editing, right? In fact, it requires zero editing. So anyway, let me get back to, oh yeah, it would only be live because the way it works in his channel is he calls these people up and has them, I think in real time. He just puts out this Zoom link, and I don't know if I would do that. I would just say who wants to talk? You get something on the live chat, and then you get their contact information, send them the link, and then they hop on and they kind of do their dog and pony show. So, oh, that's a pretty good idea. See, with Jack, he gets 50% more views on the same video. It's really annoying. I love Jack, but he's more charismatic than I am. So it's just but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that's probably not a bad. That's probably a good idea. Well, or Morehouse. I think Morehouse is like a BS detector, like a big BS detector. That's true. But the thing again, you could get somebody who's it's easy to be a hoaxer. In fact, I know a guy who was a hoaxer way back when. Famous hoaxer. Who got on a call and just made this thing. He's like a horror writer, but I'm not gonna. He's been canceled by the horror community for saying the unspeakable things. Yeah, that's true. You just roll the dice. Let's see. Oh yeah, David, you're on fire today, man. You get this precognitive vibe because you're like, oh yeah, I need to talk about this topic, which you have probably no idea what I'm going to talk about, but it's related to writers. So the other thing I just want to warn people about, because I don't want to lose subscribers when I do this. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to schedule it outside of the Monday and Wednesday that I typically do the rest of my episodes. But when I have this weird World War China anthology coming out, which by the way, it's already on Amazon. If you like to order it, I'd be very appreciative. That said, I'm going to interview a bunch of the writers who are in it. They just talk about their stories for maybe 20 minutes or so. But I'm going to schedule them. They'll be numbered episodes, but I'm going to put them in the kind of off times, Tuesdays and Thursdays, Fridays, something like that, as part of the drum beat before the release of that book. So just be forewarned, I'm going to do it. You know, I'm just going to do it because, but I'm not going to, it's not going to be at the, sacrificing the other content. Right. So I'm still going to focus on paranormal, geopolitical stuff. I do some writing stuff. It just doesn't, I haven't put a lot of the writing stuff on here because it just doesn't perform well. And it's kind of not where the audience is heading. But it fits into that paranormal, geopolitical frame. It's just fiction. It's not fact. So anyway, for what it's worth, I'm just warning people. Let's see. That's a good idea. Yeah, I just call it like open lines. And then I just have to think I have to be intelligent about how I do it. Because you can also get into a lot of trouble if somebody comes in and, like a woman comes on and like takes her shirt off when you're not paying attention, like uh or somebody says something that's can get your channel canceled and things like that. So it's risky for sure. Um but nobody really does that here. So I don't think it's as risky as I'm making it out to be. But yeah, just call it open lines and just see what people have to say. I think I'll watch a few more of those on Jeff Morris' channel just to get a better feel for how he does it and how he grants people access and all that good stuff. And then maybe I'll try it. But there's I think Edward Parker, somebody who follows this channel, mentioned doing something like this, and I've been noodling on it for like months. I've been thinking about it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I have like 20 some authors who would be, and there's actually been some episodes that have done really well, but I can never predict which ones they're going to be. So like there's one I can think of in particular that has done extremely well. So, but it's not, if you knew who the people were in the community, it's not the one you would have likely picked that would perform as well as it did. All right, so that was a great segue for that. I don't want to talk too much more about that. I'm trying to, yeah, and I had another guy you would have heard of on the hook, actually two of them. One more Moon Man knows what I'm talking about, but again, one of them, just saw the subscriber count and it just wasn't high enough. It was just like, look, I don't see any benefit to being on this thing. If I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to, I want to put him in a bad light. But on the other hand, though, I completely understand where he's coming from, right? So the way you handle those is like you respond, totally understand. When I get bigger, I'll reach back out to you, right? Not no harm, no foul, and I think it went fine. The other guy just had like work just buried him, and he's just like, I can't. I'm gonna have to, push it out a little bit, but come back to me when that happens. I'm trying to think of other folks. Yeah, so I'm actively looking for more people. If you know of anybody that you think would be a good guest, please just let me know and I can reach out to them. But yeah, the author stuff that'll take care of itself. I mean, they're in the anthology, and I'll just say, look, in fact, one of them reached out to me. He was just like, I have a friend in Scotland who's been watching your podcast. Like, it's look, it's starting to get kind of big, and I'm like, well, not yet, but it's starting to reach more viewers, so it's pretty good stuff. All right, I'm trying to. How are we doing on time? Hour 25 minutes. What do people want to talk about? Because I don't want to prolong this any longer than this should be. But I would, if folks have any questions or want me to cover anything more, I'd be happy to do it. Or any guests or any topics. Like I haven't done anything on near-death experiences, channeling. I mean, there's a little bit with Angela Ford, but I haven't gone too much into that. I'm a little hesitant. That's a little bit, kind of out of my comfort zone at this point in time. Yeah, I reached out to one of those guys and I haven't heard back from him yet. So, oh, I'm already, yeah. There's a guy that I haven't reached out to yet, but there's another guy. He was on Coast to Coast either this year in August or last year in August. He was a demonologist, and he's kind of has an interesting take on all this stuff. So I'm gonna that I will interview him in October, and that episode should appear sometime in October. Perfect month for that sort of thing, though. Yeah, yeah. There's plenty of folks who do that. I just don't know what kind of angle I have. It's any more interesting than anybody else on that topic. So, but it appears to. I mean, it appears to be like a real thing. Based on the research and people are able to independently verify where things were in a room that they couldn't have possibly known, things outside the hospital that they couldn't have possibly seen from their bed. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that. I could also do a lot more with remote viewing. Like kind of do some like target stuff where you just pick a target and have contests and things like that. But I have to reach out to Daz Smith again because we talked a little bit about things like that. Ooh, look, I'm Catholic, not necessarily a practicing Catholic, but like that sort of like anything that has anything to do with demons and stuff like that, like freaks me out. Like even though it shouldn't, I should be completely rational about it. But it, I was talking to Tim Powers about this. Like there's some book that has like transcripts from an exorcism, and there's like a warning at the beginning of the book. And you should just watch my interview with Tim Powers, who's an author. He's like the guy who wrote the book behind like On Stranger Tides. That was his book, which was like there's a Pirates of the Caribbean movie that was based on it, and he also personally knew Philip K. Dick, all that stuff. But he in the interview I did with him, I can't recall the name of the book, but there's a book that says like make sure you say like this certain prayer before you open this book and read the passages because it could just by the very fact of reading this stuff it could invoke the whatever it is. And he just like shut it and said, oh, I'm done, I'm not. And I'm kind of the same way with that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd have to tiptoe toward it a little bit. Oh, that's actually a good idea. That's a really good idea. Well, I would have to learn associative remote viewing first, though. So as soon as Morehouse gets his thing spun up, I could do a little bit of that. Yeah, but I'd like to do it too because I can. I used to. I used to do some of this stuff professionally, not the remote viewing part, but the investing. Oh, yeah. In fact, one of the authors in my book, actually, in all three, so Weird World War III, Weird World War IV, and Weird World War China. His name's Nick Mamatas. He wrote a book about like this sort of thing, and he interviewed people who were part of like Thelema and um, the name of this book is Love is the Law, right? Which is like a famous saying by Crowley. But yeah, that's possible. But again, like you start going toward this dark stuff, you know, you're you're risking a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an atheist, but I would say I think there's something beyond the physical. And I think every religious tradition has captured aspects of it, but not all of it. So, but again, I don't know. It's like a pathetic belief system that I've kind of cobbled together. Yeah, I think I did one with Dale Graff. It's more precognitive dreaming, but there's a lucid dreaming aspect to it. Dale Graff, for those who don't know, was the director of Project Stargate. He worked at DI, the Defense Intelligence Agency, during the heyday of Project Stargate, the remote viewing program. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but the name of the book is called Love is the Law, like the book that Nick Mamatas wrote. And it's like a Nick Mamatas is an interesting guy. Like it's a YA novel about like Crowleyism and stuff like that. It's called Love is the Law. Yeah, you know what? That's actually a great idea in terms of like having like a Kabbalist on. Like I know nothing about the Kabbalah, like nothing. And I think it would be just, in order to like fill or to not mask, but expose my ignorance on the topic by asking questions. Like I literally know nothing about it, but it sounds like I just hear it in passing, and it sounds fascinating. It feels like it's like the Jewish version, in a sense, of like the Book of Enoch in the Christians. Well, actually, the Book of Enoch was also, I think, Old Testament, so it's also Jewish. But the Book of Enoch is one of those books that the Catholic Church has kind of gotten. Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about like it's like Christian. No, it's actually Hebrew, right? Interesting. So the Gilgu Neshamat is that's where the Kabbalistic teachings are. Is that correct? Again, I am completely ignorant of this stuff, so I'm soaking it up as you're talking about it. It sounds fascinating. Yeah, if there is one. I mean, there's that guy on Skinwalker Ranch, but once they appear on Skinwalker Ranch, it's tough to get them on the show. Interesting. Yeah, I need to do more research into some of these areas. Um, who's that guy? There's a guy, Mitch Horowitz, who does like a lot of, or who does a lot of occult stuff. I mean, I reached out to him a long time ago. No response. I mean, too big for my channel at this time. But I think he'd be a fascinating person to interview. But is he like is his practice related to that? I'd be curious. And even like an episode on gin would be interesting too. But I'm getting too far ahead of my skis right now. Like I gotta stop being like 1 week ahead of like when my episodes are starting to appear. Yeah, the problem with my claim to fame is I've never really had a clear cut experience that I can say was UFO related. Right? I just have like weird nature related stuff, which like people always talk about like seeing dragonflies and hummingbirds and you know and butterflies, and like I can go outside and yeah, see two of those three things in 5 minutes almost every day. So I who knows, who knows. All right, what else we got? Anything else going on in this strange universe, paranormal, and I mean, and there's geopolitical. Like, good lord, what a mess! What a mess! I was just before this live stream. I was trying to read like the uh, British update on preparation for like this Russian offensive or something in Ukraine, but I don't know. I think they got to end this war very quickly, because if they don't, Russia has a 3-1 population advantage, and eventually the weight of demographics kind of, you can't defeat that, right? It's like the Confederacy and the Civil War. They had a superior military in terms of like better officers and training, but the U.S. had, where the North had all the industrial capacity, and over time they just ground the South into dust, essentially, just through sheer mobilization, all that stuff. So I don't know. But everybody in Maui though got $700. So we're spending more money over there than we are here for our own citizens. So yay, U.S. government. All right, what else? I'll get off. I'll get off. I try not to take like either side either on politics. I'm generally not a fan of increasing the size of government, because it just gets, it just collapses under its own weight. It just gets bigger and bigger, and doesn't really deliver the services that it's supposed to. It just becomes a mechanism for rent seeking, unfortunately. All right, what else do people want to talk about? All right, well, we might be able to cut this one a little short. Usually I go 2 to 3 hours, but I'm not weighted to staying on if I don't need to. Anyone? Bueller? All right. I think now is probably, I'll give it 6 more minutes. 8:40. I'll target 8:40. And I kind of just stick around and talk for a little bit more, and then hop off when we hit that period of time. What are people reading? Any books I should check out? I mean, I have a huge stack right now where with the camera is, and then over on my left. So trying to get through Passport to Magonia and a bunch of other ones. So, and then I kind of don't read one entire book and then move to the next. I read part of a book, I read part of another book, and I just read like 10 different books in parallel. But and eventually finish them, but it's just pretty slow. Voyage to Arcturus. What is that? Now I'm curious. Let's see. Voyage to Arc. Voyage to Arc. Oh, it's a novel. Let's see. The greatest novel of the 20th century. Let's see. An interstellar voyage takes 3 Englishmen to Tourments, a planet orbiting the double star Arcturus, 100 light years from Earth. Allegorical in nature, the story chronicles the experiences of characters as they travel through lands that represent philosophical systems of states of mind, while the main protagonist, Mascule, searches for the meaning of life. An unusual amalgam of fantasy, philosophy, and science fiction. The story explores the nature of good and evil and their relationship to being. A Voyage to Arcturus continues to be loved as much for its imaginative world-making as his inimitable, shimmering literary style. Interesting. Oh, wow. It's got like a masterpiece, an extraordinary work, quite magnificent. Clive Barker. That's one of the quotes. The second one, The real father of my planet books is David Lindsay's Voyage to Arcturus, C.S. Lewis. So you got C.S. Lewis and Clive Barker raving about a book. It's gotta be pretty good. Let's see what we got. Okay, Following Wild Pendulum in a Dream book. Okay. Yeah, scientific stuff's hard to read. It's just like unnecessary pedantry sometimes. Yeah, I think I've read the Brothers Karamazov, but I don't think I've read Crime and Punishment, even though I should have. I have not. It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've seen it. Oh yeah, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. I actually have a video that summarizes much of that. That's by Itzhak Bentov. Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Yeah, it's really an interesting book about how all this non-physical stuff is maybe tied to quantum mechanics and all this stuff. Oh, starring James Woods. Okay, Valis is like that system by Phil. I mean, I think it's a Philip K. Dick book, if I had to guess. All right. All right. I think we're 2 minutes away. So, any last comments or anything like that before I slip into the sunset? Let's see. Yep, looks like I have a few. Yeah, it's all relative. All right, I'll have to take a look at it when it comes up. All right. And what else we got? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably gonna be pretty good. It's one weird dude, but that totally makes sense. All right, I think now's the time to bid everyone adieu. Have a great night, and thanks for tuning in. And to next month, and to future videos. They're starting next week. So, thank you, everyone, and see you all soon.